Hello everyone, my name is Jose Pons, and this video is going to be an ethical analysis of the patent war between Apple and Samsung, which are two of the largest tech companies in history of mankind. The standard to be used for this analysis is utilitarianism, and the specific provision is the greater good for a greater number of people, which simply means that if an action benefits most people in any way, then that action should be considered to be ethical. I will first explain why this patent war could be considered ethically good by our aforementioned standard and provisions. Here in this section, we'll make clear, among other points, how all competition could be considered good for society, and therefore, since this war is in fact a form of competition, it should also be considered to be ethically good for society. Then I will explain the other side of the story, in which part I will break down the negative effects this war could and actually has had for society and even for Apple and Samsung themselves, which will make the argument that this war is in fact ethically bad because it results in a loss for the greater number of people in society rather than a benefit. For to begin, just for the ethical side of this discussion, the first reason why this war between Apple and Samsung is considered or could be considered to be ethically good is because it is, like we said before, a form of competition. And competition itself is considered ethically good since it is, in fact, one of the pillars of any free market society, like, for example, the US. It's more a fact, countries actively seek to promote competition by means of anti-monopoly laws and many other laws too. The reason why competition is considered so good is because it is supposed to, and it in fact protects and benefits consumers. And this happens by means of a reduced prices and increased quality that is in fact promoted by competition. Secondly, the more money Samsung and Apple spend fighting each other in this patent war, the less resources they have to improve their own products, like developing new features and that kind of thing. This has a positive effect too on society, since it would allow other companies to either enter or reinforce their position in this market, which is the smartphone market. At the same time, this has the potential to result, new companies entering the market, the potential to result in even more competition, and therefore it could or it would have the potential to reduce prices even more and increase quality and variety of products in that market. Again, the smartphone market in this case. So, as a conclusion for the ethical side of this argument, we can say that this patent war between Apple and Samsung is indeed results in a net benefit to the greater number of people in society, and this net benefit comes from the lower prices and increased variety and quality that results from this competition, which is, like we said already, is good for society. This makes this action ethical by the standard and provisions defined previously, since again it is for the greater good of society for most people. So on the flip side of this analysis, we can argue this action to be unethical by our same chosen standards and provision. And this argument mainly is going to focus on the fact that this Apple Samsung war is destructive and not constructive competition. This means that the two companies compete with each other by attempting to eliminate or hinder their competitor rather than by building up their actual products, their own products. And they actually spend significant amounts of money in this war, mostly in legal expenses. which means that less money is left over for I don't know, increasing for product development, for example, or development on new products or features for products they already have, and so on, to increase quality. It is easy to see then how this would result in a lower product quality, which is actually bad for the consumer. What's even worse is that in the unlikely case that one of these companies actually manages to ban its competitor products from an important market, this would be terrible for society in terms of greatly reduced competition and greatly reduced variety of products to choose from. Just imagine if Apple or Samsung were prevented from selling their newest product, from how badly consumers would be hurt. This would actually also allow the remaining company, the one that wasn't banned, to drive up the prices as much as they wanted, almost as much as they wanted, with no opposition from anybody. It would basically be a monopoly, which we don't even have to argue is bad. We know a monopoly is always bad, and it would be a monopoly at the very least for high-end smartphones like Galaxy S6 or iPhone 6. So, as a conclusion for the unethical side of this conversation, we can then say that it is easy to argue that this war is in fact detrimental to society. Even for Apple and Samsung, they're most likely to come out of this war worse off than they went into it, given the massive legal costs of this patent war that they're having right now. Therefore, by using the greater good for the greater number of people, provision of the utilitarianism ethical standard, we can deem this action unethical because because of its negative impact for society as a whole. As a conclusion to this analysis, we can say that even though both sides can be argued for, there is actually more support for the unethical side. Also, this war will most likely take more from society than it will ever be able to give back. Only think of the consequences if one of the two companies, like we said before, could actually win the war. That would mean that one of the two most important smartphone makers would be banned from major markets, and we already argued how bad that would be. Like, think Apple banned from the US. Even though this is actually highly unlikely to happen, the previous analysis should be actually reason enough to conclude that the potential loss from this war is considerably more than the potential gain for society.